Hello everyone and welcome back to another deck guide, this time featuring the Atlantean Mermail combo archetype thing. Basically, Atlantean and Mermail are one deck at this point, so we call them a single archetype. So anyways, this archetype is focused on cards that send cards to the graveyard to activate their effects, and then cards that activate their own effects when sent to the graveyard. So it's kind of this half and half deal where you are sending things to get value, and then also the things that you send get you value. So there's a lot of chain blocking that you can do with this deck. There's a lot of like uninteractable value. It's a very difficult deck to completely put the brakes on without something like a Droll Lockbird. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Neptibus here is one of the best cards in the entire deck, maybe the second, because he is our best starter. When you normal summon him, you can then activate his effect to send an Atlantean monster from your deck to the graveyard and add another Atlantean from deck to hand. He has another effect that when sent to graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, you can monster reborn an Atlantean monster in your graveyard besides himself. That means that throughout your combo, he is one of the only cards you can use as a sender and also as a card to send to the graveyard for value. So he's super integral to the deck actually functioning whatsoever, and being able to send from deck to graveyard is insane. Deep Sea Diva's here pretty much as 3 extra copies of Neptibus, because when normal summons, she special summons Neptibus from your deck, and then you can just do his thing. And then we have a 2 of Abyssrine. Abyssrine is a super good extender because you contribute her and another Atlantean or Mermail card from hand or field, then special summon a level 7 fish, sea serpent, or aqua. That gets a couple of very key pieces in this deck that we will talk about in a moment, and then you can't special summon anything besides water monsters for the rest of the turn after you use this effect. And then when she's in the graveyard during the opponent's turn, you can draw and discard a card, which is actually relevant to activate some of our plays. We'll get to that as well. Then we play 3 of Mermail Abyss Spike. This is another starter, but also an extender in conjunction with a specific piece. Because Abyss Spike, in addition to being a level 4, which is relevant for some of our Xyz plays, when you normal or special summon him, you can discard a water monster, which activates its effect if you're discarding the right ones, and then add another one from deck to hand. Then we've got Mermail Abystius. Abystius can discard a water monster to the graveyard to special summon himself, and when summoned you can add a level 4 or lower Mermail monster to hand. This can get you Abyssrine, this can get you Abyss Spike, and you can actually search this off of Abyssrine. Just note that if you special summon Abystius off of Abyssrine, you will not get the search. He has to summon himself by discarding from the hand, but that's okay because Abyssrine can let you add to hand. Also, it's not the most common target for her, so it's fine. He's just kind of here as a 3 of really good extender. And then we play 1 copy of Deep Sea Minstrel. Deep Sea Minstrel is a super good card and kind of takes the place of a hand trap. You could play 2 or even 3 of her, but she does not interact necessarily with our combo outside of the fact that she can discard a card from hand. So her effect is that you can discard her and a water monster to look at your opponent's hand and banish a card from their hand face up until the end phase. So this allows you to protect yourself from things like Droll, Nibiru, and just get perfect hand knowledge to do the rest of your combo with, which is one of the most powerful things you can do in Yu-Gi-Oh! But she doesn't necessarily do much else. The other reason that we do play 1 is she is a level 3 tuner. So late in the combo we get a Reborn, and we have a level 7 on the field. So that allows us to Reborn her, go into Ice Jade, Gymir Aegirine. So that's really most of the reason we have her, but if you open her, you can use her effect to gain hand knowledge, which is super powerful. Then we play 1 of Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth. Coelacanth is an absolute house, so in addition to being a level 7, which means that he is special summonable from deck by Abyssrine's effect, you can once per turn discard a card, which is a good thing for us, and then special summon as many level 4 or lower fish monsters as possible from your deck, which is absolutely insane. We only play 3 targets, which is Abyss Spike, And we tend to use one Abispike earlier in the combo just as part of our normal going stuff, but Coelacanth tends to get you 1 to 2 copies of Abispike, which if you get 2 copies, which is most common, you can then use them to go into one of our rank 4 Xyz plays. You can also, because of Coelacanth, you can play under Droll. So if you happen to have Abyssrine in hand, you can discard her special summon Coelacanth to the field, get 3 more Abispikes, and that gives you 4 materials to work with under Droll without having to do anything else. It's super, super cool. And then the rest of his effects are not particularly relevant. Just know that we can go with Deep Sea Minstrel into our 10 with him. Then we've got the single most important card in the entire deck, and that is Atlantean Dragoons. So Atlantean Dragoons is a level 4, so we can use it for rank 4 plays, but more importantly, if he is sent to the graveyard to activate a Water Monster's effect, you can add a Sea Serpent monster from your deck to your hand, except himself. Note, there is no once per turn on this effect. So we are sending Dragoons off of everything we possibly can and recurring it at every possible opportunity and using this card like 5 times in a single combo. This card is the glue that holds this entire deck together. And then we play a 2 of Mermail Shadow Squad. Mermail Shadow Squad is an incredible send card. Because if you send him to the graveyard, you can then special summon 1 level 4 or lower Atlantean or Mermail from deck straight to the field. It doesn't negate the effects or anything, it just gets you going. So in combination with Dragoons, this makes up the majority of our package of creatures we want to be sending to the graveyard. His other effect is very relevant. When he's on the field, you can discard 1 card to the graveyard, and all of your water monsters become level 7. That allows us to go into level 7 plays, which is great because it's difficult kind of to get Coelacanth and Abystius onto the field at the same time sometimes, so being able to force our board into level 7s is really strong. And then we also play 1 Mermail Abyssgund. Abyssgund is a bit of a situational extender. If she's discarded, you can target a Mermail and special summon it. That effect is great, except for the fact that it says if this card is discarded, because about half of our deck discards. So Abyspike discards, Abystius discards. Other ones send, so you cannot send her off of Neptibus and get the effect. It will not work. We have some stuff in the extra deck that sends and it doesn't work. You cannot tribute with Abyssrine and still get the effect. So you don't want to play 3 Abyssguns because you have to maneuver into a position where you are discarding her specifically off of Abyspike or Abystius, basically. Really weird rules text thing. Otherwise she would be a 2, maybe even a 3 of in the deck because she's really good if you can engineer that situation as an extender. Then we play 1 of Atlantean Heavy Infantry. Heavy Infantry is a little bit weird, so he on the field allows you to normal summon another Sea Serpent from hand. We don't actually tend to need or use that effect a whole lot. More importantly is the fact that if he's sent to the graveyard to activate an effect, you can target and destroy. We can do that on the opponent's turn. It's not once per turn, so if we have any way to recur him and then send him again, we get multiple destructions. It's actually really cool. It's a good card for going second as well, just because you discard it as part of what you're doing and blow up interaction that your opponents have. Very important card, but it's not part of the combo. You search it towards the end, so we only play 1. And then we play 1 Moulin Glacia the Elemental Lord. This is a terrifying card. So the only way to special summon this card is by having 5 water monsters in your graveyard. But if it's special summon, you discard 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Absolute house of a card. But most decks have trouble engineering the board state that is necessary to have exactly 5 water monsters in the graveyard. I'm not going to say it's easy in this deck. I have had duels where I forced myself to put more than 1 card in the graveyard at a point where I already had 4, and then I just jumped straight to 6, and you can't special summon Moulin Glacia at that point. This is just in general a pretty tough deck to pilot, but if you know what you're doing and you learn the combo lines and you're watching out for it, you can get Moulin Glacier out as part of basically any combo you're doing, and that's just your opponent starting with 2 less cards in hand is absolutely disgusting. We play 1/1 for 1. This card is Take It or Leave It. It's cool because you can actually send a card from hand to graveyard, which triggers that effect, and then you can special summon the Neptibus straight from your deck to the field, which gets that started. It's just copy 7 of Neptibus that also discards something, so you can maybe get value off of that. Like, it's, you know, it's just another good starter. And then we've got the reason that we are playing a 43 card deck, because we've got 4 cards coming up that we don't really want to see in our opening hands. These are all cards that we want to be searching as part of our combo and our disruptions that we're doing. So first up is Abyssing Traina. So this allows you to special summon 1 Atlantean or Mermail monster from your hand or graveyard and equip it with this. Basically, we want to search this off of our King Neptibus in the extra deck. It's not the worst thing if you open it, because it is just like an extension tool. It's a pretty solid extension tool. Just get whatever you need from the graveyard and go. But because it is searchable and we have so many extenders already, we don't play more than 1. Then we play 1 Abyssgale of Mizuchi. This can only be equipped to a Mermail monster. They get 800 attack, but most importantly, the first spell your opponent activates gets negated, and then this card gets sent. So you do not get to choose it, but it just automatically hits the first thing that they try to do that is a spell. Not the single strongest disruption, but a negate is a negate. Most decks are trying to use a spell. And we also are just like equipping this on the opponent's turn to our Neptibus, so like it's free. We equip it straight from deck, so we might as well play the 1. Then we play 1 Virtue Stream. This is searchable off of Le Virtue Dragon in our extra deck, and it allows you to target 1 fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy them. Basically, it just is extra disruptions that you can search if you choose to go through the Le Virtue Dragon line. And, like, we don't hate opening this. We don't want to because it is searchable. But if someone, you know, like, uses a Mulch Army, a Droll on you or something, and you're forced to pass early, at least this gives you 2 pieces of disruption normally. Its other effect allows you to target a monster on the field, and if it's water, the next time it would be destroyed, it doesn't get destroyed. If it's not, it becomes water. So that's just a versatile disruption that allows you to either protect your stuff, or if you're facing, say, like Adamancipator or something that really cares about the attribute of its creatures, you can turn it water and then they can't use that creature, which is kind of funny. Most of the time you're just using it to protect your stuff, though. And then I play 1 copy of Abyss Steam, so this card is searchable off of Abyss Strike in the extra deck, and it allows you to draw cards equal to the number of different monster types you control that are fish, sea serpent, or aqua. So that normally means you can draw either 2 or 3 extra cards on your opponent's standby phase, which is super good. And then it also gives you follow-up. If a face-up water monster you control is destroyed, then you can banish this card and add a Mermail from your graveyard to your hand. Then we play 14 pieces of non-engine, not particularly important to talk about, fill it with what you got. But it is, again, important to mention that this deck has some bricks. There's a lot of searching going on here, and while not necessarily everything is a hard brick, we would really rather search Steam, Stream, Abyssgale, Abyss Traina, Moulin Glacier, Atlantean Heavy Infantry. Like, all of those cards we would rather search. Coelacanth, we don't really want Coelacanth in our opening hand. So we play a little bit over. It might honestly be better to run 45 to 50, but this is the most starters that you can play, so if you get too high on the number of cards in this deck, you start to see your starters and your good extenders less and less, so I think 43 to 45 is a good call. Then, going through the extra deck really quick, Coral Anemone allows you to special summon a water monster from the graveyard, which just allows you to link climb. And then Abyssalacia allows you to quick effect on your opponent's turn, send something to the graveyard, add a Mermail from deck to hand, and then if she gets destroyed, you can special summon a water monster from your graveyard. The fact that she can discard on your opponent's turn is super important. because of Mermail King Neptibus. Neptibus prevents all of your water monsters that it's pointing to from being targeted by card effects. Note, you can actually still target him, just nothing that he is pointing to. And then if something is sent to the graveyard to activate an effect, you can equip the Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi directly from deck to him to get that negate online. So you're trying to get that active off of either Abyssal Acia's discard or Abyss Shrine's discard from the graveyard. Either one works, but it just gets you a spell negate on the field for free. And then he also has follow-up, where if he gets destroyed, you can just add back a card, which is, this deck has a lot of follow-up. It more so has the issue of like running out of steam, just like running out of cards in the deck to send to the graveyard. But it does not lack for putting cards back in your hand. We also play a one of Zealantis because it's not too hard to get to here, and it can just break a board. This deck actually has some pretty good wheels going second, so like Zealantis is just one more piece of the puzzle that allows us to flip everything face down and just, kill them, basically. Not used terribly often, but useful when it comes up. We play 2 copies of Abyss Shark because Abyss Shark is a soft once per turn that allows you to attach a material and special summon a rank 3 Xyz from your extra deck to the field. We can go into this off of a bunch of stuff, namely the Abyss Spikes and the Atlantean Dragoons. Any combination of those guys allows us to go into Bahamut Shark, so we can sometimes put 2 on the field in one turn. Why would we want to do that? Well, we're running 2 copies of Totally Awesome, which is an Omni Negate in this deck. You just put it on the field. When you want to negate, send itself to the graveyard, Omni Negate. Boom. But his negate is a soft once per turn, which means sometimes we can put 2 of them on the field. That's 2 Omni Negates. Love to see it. We play 1 Lavirtue Dragon, which you can go into also off of the Bahamut Sharks. And when you do that, you can add a Virtue Stream, the one that we play, from your deck to hand. And then you can also detach a material and return a card from graveyard to hand. So the thing that we're doing with that is getting back Atlantean Dragoons 99% of the time, so that we can discard it again to get yet another search. Lavirtue Dragon's great in this deck. And then with both Lavirtue Dragon and Bahamut Shark, we can use them as link material to go into these guys after we've used their effects, because they're not actual boss monsters in and of themselves. Then we play a 1 of Abyss Dweller because we can use this to shut down the opponent's graveyard effects on their turn. We play a Stealth Kraken because Stealth Kraken can completely ruin certain decks, and it is a disruption either way, allowing you to once per turn destroy a water monster and making everything water. So even if making everything water doesn't really matter to your opponent, being able to destroy is still a disruption. He's still good. We play 1 Abyss Strike. You can go into this off of 2 7s, which we're going to do off of our Shadow Squad. And when special summoned, she allows you to reborn a level 7 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua, so basically anything in the deck, from graveyard straight to the field. And then she also can detach a material to set our Abyss Steam directly from the deck. So we set that from deck, and that gets us a few extra draws on the opponent's upkeep to hopefully find hand traps and stuff, because we've been thinning our deck like crazy. She also doesn't lose us anything to go into because of that reborn. We have 1 Mermail Abyss Gaios. Abyss Gaios is super strong. He makes it so that high-level monsters can attack, which is not super relevant. But much more relevant is once per turn on either player's turn, you can detach a material to negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Note that this is not necessarily a quick effect. You can do it on the opponent's turn, but not at spell speed 2. It's kind of confusing, but he's really useful as an extra disruption that can also just completely shut down the opponent's stuff on your turn when you're going for the kill if you went second. And we have 1 of Poseidra Abyss. Poseidra Abyss can be Xyz summoned using either of these guys as material, and then you can detach 2 materials, send something from either your deck or hand to graveyard, bounce 3 things your opponent controls. While that's pretty good for going second, it's not a quick effect, and even more importantly, when he gets sent to the graveyard, you can then reborn 3 things from the graveyard. So you want to use him as link material to get back 3 things. Just be aware, it has to be 3. It's not up to 3, which means if you don't have space on your board, his effect does not work. So you kind of have to get to him pretty early in the combo, and that can be a struggle sometimes. Then we have 1 Ice Jade Gymir Agerine. We can go into this off of Deep Sea Minstrel in one of our 7s, and the idea is that quick effect, she can activate and make all of your stuff unable to be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects the entire turn. And then if you activate it in response, you banish the opponent's card that you responded to. She's just a really solid boss monster that we can go into. And then lastly, I do want to give a shout out to Poseidra the Storming Atlantean. This card is super good because you can send a monster from hand or face-up field to the graveyard to special summon it, and then when it's summoned, you can send a card from deck to graveyard and bounce an opponent's card. The reason this is not played main deck is because if you cannot bounce an opponent's card, you cannot send the card from deck to graveyard in the first place. That means that he loses a ton of value going first, because if you're going first, all he does is special summon himself by discarding, and while that's a perfectly acceptable effect in this deck, you really want to be using that second effect to send a card from deck to graveyard and bounce something. So I play him in the sideboard just so that when we're going second, you can put him in the main deck, and then you just have this one extra extender disruption tool that's super good. If you're playing Master Duel and it's best of 1 and you're never sure what you're going to be playing, then I'd maybe pop 1 or 2 of them into the main deck. So that's going to do it for the actual deck profile, guys. We're going to jump into a combo now, and then I will see you guys later for the closing thoughts. Alright, so now I'm going to show you a possible 1-card Neptibus combo. There's actually quite a bit of variance to this combo, but I feel like this is going to be the best one just to showcase the power of the deck. Strap in, it's going to be a long one. Let's go. So of course we normal summon our Neptibus and activate its effect to send Shadow Squad to the graveyard to search Dragoons. Shadow Squad is then going to special summon from our deck the Abyss Spike. This Spike can discard Dragoons to search both Moonling Glacia and Abyss Shrine. Abyss Shrine then tributes our Neptibus on the field to special summon Coelacanth from deck, and when sent to the graveyard, Neptibus can special summon back our Dragoon so we can overlay into a Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark gets totally awesome to protect the rest of our combo, and the Dragoon searches us yet another card, this time the Deep Sea Minstrel. We can then discard to Coelacanth to get 2 more Abyss Spikes for more materials. This lets us special summon the Moonling Glacia to make our opponent discard and overlay into another Bahamut Shark to get La Virtue Dragon this time. La Virtue searches the Virtue Stream and then detaches a material to get the Atlantean Dragoons back to hand, and we can link those 2 off into Marincess Coral Anemone. Coral Anemone special summons back the Shadow Squad, and then we can discard to make everything level 7, searching up the Heavy Infantry, and then overlaying into Abysstrite. Abysstrite special summons back the Diva. Diva allows us to go into Gymir Agerine, and then we can link into our Neptibus King. We can then search the Triana off of King to get an extra material, use the extra material along with Abysstrite to go into Abyssalacia, set everything, and then pass the turn. On the opponent's turn, we can activate Abyss Steam to draw 2 extra cards, and then we can activate our Abyss Shrine in the graveyard to draw an extra card, and activate our Neptibus to equip Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi to counter the first spell that our opponent tries to play. Note that in this situation, if the Abyss Steam had drawn you an extra water monster, you want to discard that instead to keep Heavy Infantry live to discard with Abyssalacia to destroy a creature. Unfortunately, Abyss Steam did not draw us an extra water monster, so away goes the Heavy Infantry. So this gets us a Spell Negate, an Omni Negate, protection for all of our creatures alongside a Banish, and 2 Destructions, as well as anything that we happen to have left in hand. Considering this is a 1-card combo, and if we had started with the full 5, we would currently be at 7 in hand if we had used no extra extenders. We're definitely going to have some hand traps in there. Cool. Alright, and we are back with closing thoughts on our Mermail Atlantean deck. So overall, as you guys have seen, this deck has ridiculous amounts of power. It puts up crazy end boards, it rips cards from the opponent's hand, it's just a really gross combo deck. And unlike most combo decks, it's not a glass cannon. You actually can play really well at protecting your pieces because whenever you do anything, you're activating 2 effects, and you can use that to chain block the most important one, and you have a lot of redundancy because you've got, 3 Atlantean Dragoons that you can just use over and over. Most of your cards are just different flavors of doing the same thing, which makes it really, really hard to find a choke point in this deck to hit. There really isn't a good one. That said, the deck does have some weaknesses. One, it's a little bit bricky. We play, 6 main deck bricks that we'd rather not draw, and sometimes you just draw 3 of those and can't do much from there. We also really, really need the graveyard to do much of anything. Like, if someone shifters you, you can probably go into the Coelacanth line and end on a couple of things, probably a Toad, maybe a Lavirtue, but it does really, really screw over your possible end board strength if someone hits you with a shifter or any other way to banish the graveyard. Simultaneously, we don't like being drolled. We can do stuff through droll, but we would really rather not. And that's kind of the problem, is that right now we're in a meta where it's Ryziel and Malice. Ryziel plays Abyss Dweller, and while they don't care about our Abyss Dweller very much, theirs ruins us pretty hard. Malice simultaneously can play Dimension Shifter, and Dimension Shifter hurts a lot, and just having things banished in general hurts a lot. So we don't really love this current meta with this deck, but it is a deck that puts up tops. It is a deck that sees play. It's probably like tier 1, if not high tier 2, just because of the level of power, consistency, and resilience. It just does not like having its graveyard touched. And before we finish off, I do want to mention, I forgot to say during the deck profile itself, that this deck can search Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. That is kind of funny because people will use this to time out during tournament play, or just as a really hardcore counter to Tenpai. So the fact that we can search this, so we could run one of Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood and search it, is really funny for this deck. The other thing that, can be considered good or bad is that this deck is pretty frickin' complicated to play. You saw the Neptibus combo. That's a 1-card combo, which tends to not be quite so long and crazy as a lot of, full hand combos are. But even just Neptibus does the whole thing. He just goes absolutely crazy on his own. And it's not super easy to pivot when you start getting hit by interruptions, even though you very much can. You may just not know how to. And so that's going to be it for this deck guide. I just want to mention before we leave how thankful I have been for all of the support. We have so many more views than I had actually expected this early in the channel's lifetime. I've been getting comments and likes and everything, and I really, really appreciate that. It makes it pretty clear to me that I'm not the only one who really wanted some in-depth deck guides rather than just deck profiles. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.